Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
With the new Citizenship Act and the fact that it has come so close to the National Register of Citizens in Assam, the state has erupted in protests. Things seem relatively calmer now, however, the issue does expose deep fault lines in the state and also shows that somewhere the BJP has got its politics wrong there. To talk more about this, I have with me Congress MP from Assam, Gaurav Gogoi. Gaurav, thank you so much for sparing time to talk to us. Let me get to a question straight off. This has been a very controversial bill. It's been opposed by a spate of opposition parties. And yet, did the opposition not sort of get its act together? How is it that it made it through the Rajya Sabha?
Well, you see, the Congress parties and its allies, we've had a discussion in the Rajya Sabha and we've met with everyone. Everyone principally was on board. Our allies was on board. Now, there were certain parties, especially the regional parties in Northeast, which I thought would have voted with their conscience and would have stood with the people of Northeast.
You also mean the AGP?
I meant the AGP, the NPP, the NDPP, all the allies within NEDA. Unfortunately, it was only the Sikkim allies which raised the concern that there is the constitutional question of what happens with 371F in the constitution, which relates to the protection of Sikkim, and they opposed the bill. But other than that, all the other allies seems to have voted with the government. So I feel that the numbers do matter to an extent in terms of getting the bill passed. But the government should have been sensitive that after the bill passed in Lok Sabha, you saw the kind of violent protests that took place where army had to be sent in, internet was suspended, not only in Assam but also in Tripura. You saw spontaneous protests erupting. And you also knew that 6 days later, you had the Prime Minister of Japan visiting this region. Now you have a visit of the Prime Minister. You've seen the region erupt into violence after the passage of Lok Sabha. What was the hurry? Why couldn't the government have waited? Why couldn't the government have spoken and consulted with the protesters, taken them along, tried to convince them? What was the tearing hurry? So somehow it seems that all of the violence that has taken place and the instability that has been created in the Northeast, it seems to have been taken almost for granted. And for what, I don't know, whether is it for the BJP's election strategy in Bengal in the upcoming 2021 elections, I frankly do not know. But clearly, this bill is not meant for Northeast. Otherwise, Northeast would not have, they would have not stoked such fire and instability. I don't think this bill is for refugees as well. Because if you look at the language of the bill, nowhere does it says refugees in the legislative language. There is no word of persecuted migrants. And if it was for refugees, why have a cutoff date of 2014?
Right.
If it is actually for refugee and as a principle, you should have extended it.
Right.
You should have also extended to other countries, Nepal and Sri Lanka for that matter. You should have explained that how would people establish the fact that they are victims of refugee persecution. Where are the guidelines? Where are the procedures? So it seems that this bill is a deliberately flawed bill for two reasons. Could be the possible elections in West Bengal, and that's quite unfortunate that for election strategy, you're sacrificing the law and order, peace and harmony in Northeast. And it could be that the NRC in Assam has been messed up so badly and you've found no other way to fix it than to come up with some sop for Bengali community who also don't believe that this CAB process would help them, because they've seen under the NRC that they have submitted all their papers. It still has not been accepted. So what guarantee do they have that they're going to submit some fictitious papers for Citizenship Amendment Bill and that would be accepted? It's the same bureaucracy after all.
Right. Now, Gaurav, the opposition outside of the Northeast to the new Citizenship Act is because it discriminates on the basis of religion as far as citizenship is concerned. The opposition in the Northeast is different. It's because there has been an anger against all outsiders, all Bidekhis as they call in Assam. Do you think that with the NRC and this act together in quick succession, it opens up old fault lines, it opens up old wounds in Assam, and does it sort of make the field rife for perhaps revival of insurgency?
Well, first of all, look at the speeches of Home Minister Amit Shah, he has actually reopened the wounds of partition. Partition has been a very painful moment in Indian history. And essentially, any government of India should have tried to heal the wounds of partition, build bridges, and build a much more collective and united society. It doesn't seem as if the Home Minister wants that. Second of all, in the Northeast, as you rightly said, it has been about, I won't say against, but more about protecting the population, the indigenous population, and their language. Remember, after independence, states were reorganized on a linguistic basis. There was a Tamil movement, an Assamese movement. Even within Assam, the official language was Bengali, right up to 60s. It was only after a massive public agitation that the official language from Bengali became Assamese. So language is something that we hold very dear to our hearts. And subsequently, later on, the Northeast Frontier Province or even Greater Assam was divided into other states, so that all the other tribal groups feel a sense of autonomy. And that has been the feeling of how successive government of India worked with the Northeast, that this is a part of the region which is, as per the Railways Department, is called the Frontier Province. So it's a remote province. It has an historical sense, it feels an historical sense of injustice when it comes to its own tribal community, its demographics, and its language. So clearly this is a very sensitive part of region, and the Citizenship Amendment Bill, I think, has gone against the expectations of the people of Northeast vis-a-vis Prime Minister Modi. They would have thought that after Prime Minister Modi and the BJP government coming back to power, their tribal languages and culture would be protected. Northeast would be given more development. Act East seemed to be a much better slogan after Look East, but completely the opposite has happened. The special category status that Northeast governments previously enjoyed when it comes to central government funds has been removed. You have seen that after Citizenship Amendment Bill and NRC, that the government has is managing to push the Northeast back into conflict, and neither the language seems to be protected, neither the culture seems to be protected. So I really feel sorry that after the relative calm of the last 15-20 years, Northeast is going back to a time when communities used to fight with each other based on religion, based on linguistic difference, based on ethnic difference. And we had only managed in the last 15-20 years to bury those fault lines and focus on jobs, focus on industry. And we've again reopened old wounds and destabilized the Northeast. And the rest of India again will think, oh, Northeast, that's a troubled area. Oh, Northeast, I can't go there because there's conflict. Oh, Northeast, there's riots and there's curfew. So who's now going to go and invest there? As a tourist, who wants to travel there? You've now created ILPs and 6 schedules. You're trying to divide the Northeast under this bill by showing certain areas under exempt and certain areas as non-exempt. But I'm grateful to the university students and the young people of Northeast. They figured this out, that all of these ILPs, 6 schedule, these are mere cosmetics. This is an attempt to divide the Northeast, and all of them, all the Northeast states, all the young people stand united in collectively opposing this bill. This has been a spontaneous protest. No party, no student organizations affiliated. This is a spontaneous protest. It's happening amongst the Northeast community, in Northeast and outside of Northeast, in Delhi. Even just yesterday, Delhi, students from Northeast India were protesting at India Gate, at Jantar Mantar. Students in Bangalore are protesting. Students in Bombay are protesting. And it's students, artists, intellectuals, the parents, everybody is coming together. Primarily, they see this bill as a way of BJP oppressing and intimidating the Northeast and subjugating the Northeast.
But Gaurav, as you rightly pointed out, the protests in Assam have been spontaneous. However, we've also seen organizations like the ASU have been at the forefront in the last couple of days. Why is it that the Congress is not out on the streets? I mean, optics in politics is something that is important. This is the moment to seize. Why are we not seeing the Congress more out on the streets against CAB? I know the party was very vehement in terms of its opposition in Parliament, but why are you not out on the streets?
So I think there's a wrong assumption to make. Not just now, ever since the idea of Citizenship Amendment Bill was introduced in the Northeast, Congress has been the only party which has protested against this bill and continues to protest. All other regional parties have shown their double standards, and their double standards were exposed. In Meghalaya, Chief Minister Conrad Sangma's government passed a resolution against CAB.
But they continue to be in power with the BJP.
And they voted in favor of this bill. They voted in favor of this bill. AGP always seemed to have opposed the bill. And now they voted in favor of this bill.
Right.
All the other parties of Mizoram, they have voted in favor of this bill despite having protested in the past. Congress is the only party which has stood by its commitment both towards the Assam Accord and both towards the integrity of the Northeast. And if you had traveled with the Northeast, you would have seen over the last 2 years in various districts, villages, towns, this has always been a Congress movement that we're protesting. And even now, there are Congress people everywhere. But I'm saying the difference, what we see right now, is that over the last 20, 30 years, people have forgotten how during the days of Assam agitation, it was the students and people who were at the forefront. And again today, we've seen those memories come back. We've seen those visuals come back after 20, 25 years, that it is the people who are at the forefront of this movement.
Right. Now, Gaurav, there's something that I've been trying to understand, but maybe you can help me understand it better. The Citizenship Amendment Bill has been a part of the BJP's manifesto agenda for many years. That's not a secret, that's not hidden. This is also a bill the BJP brought in the last time in the Lok Sabha. It got it passed in the Lok Sabha, after which we saw lots of protests in Assam earlier this year. And yet Assam continued to vote for the BJP. It voted for the BJP in the assembly elections. It voted for the BJP after it passed the CAB in Lok Sabha fairly overwhelmingly in the Lok Sabha elections. They were one of the few people who actually managed to retain their seats, despite not being in the BJP. Why? What explains this dichotomy? Why is Assam still voting for the BJP despite this agenda?
I think in the last election, what people saw was that since the BJP got the bill passed in Lok Sabha and managed to put their feet off the pedal when it comes to the Rajya Sabha, people felt that actually maybe the BJP is not so serious, it is also doing it for optics. Because they didn't pass it in Rajya Sabha, they didn't make a strong attempt also, although Congress was ready to oppose. So I feel that BJP people thought that, okay, this seems to be an election strategy and this is not something serious. It is only in the recent months, with one after the other statements by the Home Minister Amit Shah, the kind of statements being made by Prime Minister Modi, that people have realized that no, actually not. This time the BJP intends to pass it both in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and do it and make it into an act. And also remember, the speed, the haste, the overall, the way it was bulldozed, I think that has provoked people even more. That what are we protesting for? Even after all these protests, if this government thinks that the Northeast is accepting, as Home Minister Amit Shah says, Northeast is welcoming, the Home Minister Amit Shah keeps boasting about 110 hours, 120 hours, meeting so many organizations, that kind of arrogance. And some of the statements made by the BJP ministers back in Assam, oh, these are nothing, these are Congress protesters, these are small protesters, this is nothing, this will all fizzle out. I think these are the actions of the BJP, the arrogance of the BJP has provoked people into taking far more violent turn, a far more extreme turn than they normally would have.
But could it also be because, and it's a harsh question, but could it also be because the people of Assam were so disenchanted with the Congress that they only saw BJP as an option, and despite this one evil that they saw of the citizenship bill or the threat of the citizenship bill, they still opted for the BJP?
Again, people of Assam are like the rest of India when it comes to vote. They are going to consider many things. Citizenship Amendment Bill, as I said, would have been a very important thing, but maybe not the most important thing because it didn't get passed in Rajya Sabha. I think it would have been a very different election had it got passed in Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha, and had it got passed in this manner. So I think it would have been a much more different sentiment and perception. Hold the election right now and I would tell you that the results would be very different. In fact, all the time we were saying that even for Citizenship Amendment Bill, why didn't you go for a public referendum? You had a public referendum in the UK on Brexit. Have a referendum on Citizenship Amendment Bill. See if people of Assam and people of Northeast truly want a Citizenship Amendment Bill. I dare this government, I dare Home Minister Amit Shah, if he thinks this bill is so popular and this bill will protect the culture, hold a public referendum tomorrow. And if the public referendum is for this bill, Congress will accept it.
Right. Now, as you rightly pointed out, Congress has had a principled opposition to the bill, and in both the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, as I said, there were very fiery speeches by Congress speakers. However, would it have been more effective for former Congress President Rahul Gandhi to make a speech in the Lok Sabha as far as this bill is concerned? Would it have sent out a different kind of message or an assurance to Assam and the rest of the Northeast?
See, Rahul Gandhi has always protested against this bill. If you go back to his election speech back in 2019, he had made it clearly simple that if Congress comes to power, we will take back this bill. So Rahul Gandhi's position has been very clear. And it is because of Rahul Gandhi's position that we Congress MPs derive strength from and make a strong protest. If our leadership weren't clear, then we would also not been so vehemently opposing this bill. It is because of the direction sent by Rahul Gandhi ji, by Srimati Sonia Gandhi ji, by having such a democratic view that they sent an AICC committee which went to every state. Home Minister Amit Shah called people to Delhi. Congress sent its team to all Northeast states. That's the difference.
Right.
That's the difference. It was just a cosmetic, something for the optics for Home Minister Amit Shah to boast about 110 hours, 120 hours. I think just for optics, if they were really sincere, which is what I told Amit Shah, that why don't you visit Assam? His visit to I think Northeast has been cancelled.
Right.
Why isn't he visiting Northeast? Has he ever been to a detention camp? He talks about the plight of Bengali community. Has he ever been to a detention camp? Has he ever been to a foreigners tribunal? Look at the way foreigners tribunal passes orders in such a flippant manner.
Right.
So, do people actually get justice in a foreigners tribunal? Do people actually get a justice in detention camp? Has Home Minister ever tried to understand these issues? So, nobody in Assam, not even the Bengali community, feel as if the BJP is serious. They understand that this is merely for election purposes. They understand it's merely an attempt to distract the attention of the people from the economy.
Right. Before we close, Gaurav, very quickly now, Assam was not a state which was organic to the BJP. The growth in Assam has been very recent. It's been a Congress bastion, a Congress stronghold. In fact, your father, Mr. Gaurav Gogoi, was a very popular CM. He continues to be actually much loved on the ground. However, over the last few years, we've seen the Congress lose its grip over not just Assam, but the rest of the Northeast. Do you see a potential revival happening there now ahead of the next elections, both assembly elections as well as the next Lok Sabha elections?
People always want an alternative. Congress had ruled in Northeast for a long time, in many states for 10 years, in some states for 15 years. And people want an alternative, and it is their right to seek an alternative. This is what keeps democracy, Indian democracy, vibrant. I always feel that even after so many years being in ruling, it is good for Congress to be in opposition also. It allows us to also have forge a new connection with people of Northeast, to forge a new connection with young voters. And now I think people have found an alternative again in Congress, because they've seen BJP bringing a bill that is visibly against the Northeast, and they've seen all the regional parties betraying the Northeast, betraying regional sentiments and aligning with the BJP. So the alternative for actually preserving the linguistic, cultural identity, the unique history of Assam, Nagaland, Tripura, the constitutional protection of Sikkim, again seems to be the Congress party. And I think we needed to have gone through this journey. Maybe people had forgotten that for the long-term interest of the states in Northeast, Congress has been willing to sacrifice political power. Go back to the Assam Accord. We had an elected government in Assam. Right. We signed the Assam Accord. Despite having an elected government in Assam, for the long-term interest of democracy and peace, we broke the government in Assam and went for fresh elections. Similarly in Mizoram, we have signed the accord. Similarly in Tripura, we have gone for elections. This is the history that people need to understand, that for peace, Congress in the Northeast, Congress has sacrificed political power. BJP has done the opposite. For political power, they have sacrificed the Northeast.
Right. Well, Gaurav Gogoi, Congress MP from Kolyabor in Assam, talking about how Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah, who's the Home Minister, are reopening the wounds of partition, and how really the Citizenship Act and NRC are pushing the Northeast back to the older decades of being volatile and of being violent. Thank you so much, Gaurav, for joining us. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel for more.